So today I'm going to talk to you about why I believe that the Sony a7S III is still the best video camera to get over the Sony a7 IV. I'm going to give you my 5 reasons why I picked this camera up in 2022 heading into 2023. Let's go ahead and talk about that next. Alright, so the first reason why I thought it was a great idea to pick up this camera is because it has the 12 megapixel sensor. So what does that mean? That gives you a full, true 4K readout versus the oversampled footage that you get on the Sony a7 IV. It's a very fast readout because it's only got the 12 megapixels. Those are larger pixels, so they end up letting in more light. It allows you to go up to higher ISOs and get a cleaner shot. Now the downside with this 12 megapixel sensor is it doesn't allow you to go into APS-C mode. So whatever lens you have on there, that's the focal length. Now you can use clear image zoom, which will help because you can go in as far as 1.5 times in 4K to get a little extra reach out of all your lenses. But that 12 megapixel sensor is a super fast readout, which is going to allow you to get some crisp 4K video without it having the look a little too over sharpened. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to pick this up is because with that 12 megapixel sensor, you're going to get very little to no rolling shutter. Because of the fast readout of the sensor, it only has to read 12 megapixels versus something like the 33 megapixels. You're going to get a lot less of that jello-y effect when you're going and doing kind of pans and things of that nature. It also helps make your image look a lot more professional when you're sitting down and you're showing a client what the image is going to look like, especially if you're using a lot of fast motion. Having the quicker readout, because it's only the 12 megapixels, definitely helps make your image look a lot better. Testing out the dynamic range here. We'll see how this thing looks when we get back in post because I got the sun behind me. Hopefully my face is well exposed, but we'll see. So now I did crank up the ISO to 12,800. That's the second base ISO for the Sony a7S III, which definitely gives you more of an advantage over the Sony a7 IV. Has an ISO that starts at 800 when you're shooting an S-Log3, a second dual ISO at 3200. This camera here, it starts at 640 and then it goes up to 12,800 and it completely cleans up again. Having that extra flexibility when you might not have studio lights or something of that nature definitely helps. So like I said, right now I have it cranked up to 12,800. I'm going to go ahead and drop it down to 10,000 and you'll see over here in the shadows how it gets a little grainy, and then once you switch it back to 12,800 it cleans right up. So here we go. So there you go. You can probably see a little bit of grain. Hopefully YouTube doesn't compress this too much. But once we switch it back to 12,800, it totally clears up. So here you go. 10,000 ISO, 12,800. Now I am shooting on a brand new lens, which definitely does help in low light situations. This is a lens that goes to a very fast aperture, and it's one that a lot of YouTubers have in their arsenal. Go ahead, comment down below. Let me know what lens you think it might be. Let's have a conversation about what you think this lens might be. Now, when you're shooting with the Sony a7 IV, you do get 4K 120 and 4K 60. Now, in the Sony a7 IV, you only get 4K 60, and it comes with a pretty hefty crop of 1.5 times because you're automatically shooting in crop mode or APS-C mode. With this camera, you're going to be shooting 4K completely uncropped in both 60p and 120. Why is that important? Well, if you're shooting like real estate or something of that nature, you're gonna want something that is gonna be really wide because you're gonna wanna show off a room, make sure it looks really big. When you're shooting in 4K 60, because you wanna slow it down, get nice smooth footage, and you have that 1.5 times crop, it does become very difficult because you're gonna have to use either wide APS-C lenses, which thankfully Sony has come out with some recently, but unfortunately, there's not a ton of options. So you could use like maybe the 11mm or the 10 to 20 that they just came out with, but you got a full frame camera, you want to make sure that you have full frame glass. With the Sony a7S III, you'll also get the advantage when shooting 4K 120 and 4K 60 that you're going to have the 422 10-bit. In the Sony a7 IV, you only get the 422 10-bit when shooting 4K 60. Now, if you want to drop down and shoot 120 frames per second, you can do that, but it's going to be at 1080p quality in the Sony a7 IV. And when you do that, you do drop down to 420 8-bit. So you lose a little color data. There is a hack, a workaround. You are able to shoot in S&Q mode, and that does get you back to 4K 120 at the 10-bit 422 video, but you lose all sound, so you're not able to record any sounds, so no ambient sounds will come through on that. It's just pure video, and it automatically slows it down in the camera. Not a huge deal, not a huge problem, but instead of being able to shoot at like a higher codec to like 200 or 240 or something of that nature, you're only shooting at, I think it's 89, which means that there's definitely less information coming into the camera. You're unfortunately unfortunately not going to get the crispest, sharpest, beautifulest, best image possible. With this camera, I do get all the 4K options. So even in low light, you're able to shoot this thing at 4K, 120 frames per second and get a beautiful image. Finally, the biggest thing with this camera is it's made for video, where the Sony a7 IV is more of your hybrid option. You're going to be able to take great still pictures with that thing and great video. With the Sony a7S III, if you're somebody who shoots primarily video, this is the camera to get. So is it a heftier price tag? For sure. It's an extra $1,000 that you're gonna have to spend, but you're gonna get the very best video quality that you possibly can out of this camera. Where on the Sony a7 IV, it's gonna primarily be more of a photo first camera with great video on the side. To be honest with you, all these features packed together, I'm shooting about 95, 97, 98% video. So this thing is made for video, which ultimately does get you the best image quality possible. If you like this video, I'm going to do a comparison on why I think the Sony a7 IV is a better camera than the Sony a7S III. So I'll go ahead, if that video is up, I'll link that on the screen now. Feel free to click on that video and I'll see you on that one next. Before you leave, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Thanks for watching.